cupcakes and welcome to Ego. That's Everybody's Got One, the show about opinions. My name is April Watts, and we're going to try to do this thing again. Last week, I was at home because I was self-quarantining. I did not have COVID, but I wanted to make sure that all of my symptoms were gone before I came back in the studio with my panelists and my staff and everything. So I'm here, I'm healthy. Make sure that you get screened. Make sure that even if your COVID test comes back negative, if you are experiencing any cold-like symptoms, anything, that you self-quarantine until all of that is over, because we want to keep everybody healthy, everybody safe, and everybody alive. With that being said, in addition to me being home, the situation was just crazy because Trump's internet would not let us be great. We had technical difficulties, so we're back to do this again. So I know you heard this last week, but one more time. America, what the fuck? But it's the 2.0 version. It's like, what the F and how did we get here, right? So joining me again are some very esteemed guests. We're going to start to my left. We have McKinley King. We have the beautiful Kendell Renee Kelly. We have the ever so talented Lancaster. And we have my girl, Ardena Githara, and she is joining us via Zoom. We have two AKAs in the building. Woo woo. Oh, she got the pinky out. Ready.
Gang.
And the AKA's on fire because Kamala's in the White House. What?
We would like to do your ears. We will not do them today, though. We're going to keep that to ourselves. We're not going to do it on the,
Not today.
Not call. We won't do
not
it.
Not today.
Yeah, we don't know if the audience is ready. We got to save that for tomorrow.
Okay.
Tomorrow, we got to, yeah.
Because it's going to be on full tilt tomorrow. Full tilt.
I expect to lose my voice.
Yes. Absolutely. Okay, so let's get down to business. Last week, our president at the time basically incited a riot. There was a siege on the Capitol. It looked crazy. Like, I didn't know what was going on. It looked like some paganism stuff going on. It looked like, it was just an animal house. What was your initial reaction? What was your first thought when you saw the siege on the Capitol? And let's start with my Zoom boo cake, Miss Ardena.
Exactly what the title is tonight. What the fuck is going on in the Capitol?
All righty, Larry. I thought it was a little bit more coming. That's what I was thinking.
That's pretty much what we all were thinking. Like, what the hell? What the fuck is going on? And why has no one been shot yet? Like,
exactly.
Yeah, I think that's the main thing that made particularly black people upset, is that we understand that if it was us, the response would have been completely different.
Yes.
And of course, the response was completely different when it was Black Lives Matter. They had every uniformed military person out there, and they had a complete show of force for peaceful protesters.
Yeah.
So,
Kendell?
The first thing I thought was, how much are they gonna mess up the traffic on my street? I mean, quite honestly, and not to be entirely selfish, but DC isn't that large.
Right.
And, I sit in a proximity that was between where people were fucking stuff up and where they were going to be come to get fixed. And so literally I'm listening to sirens, emergency vehicles all day.
Right.
And so, that is not the most comforting feeling already, but then it gives you not just the what the fuck, but what the fuck is next? What the fuck is coming?
Yeah.
And so that remains part of my question. And it remains part of my question based on just the response that happened. I expected a dragnet. Like, I literally expected, I've been in Europe, I think I mentioned this, like, where there have been these things, where there have been riots, not just protests, but riots.
Riots.
And there's a net. Not here.
E?
Not here because white people. I turned on the TV and I was like, these white people are crazy, but like in a way that they're not. You can't not accept it. Like there's acceptable crazy. Like white people have been crazy, and they've been allowed to for the most part, right? Like shit's been crazy for the last 4 years for sure, and then beyond that.
White privilege is literally a psychosis. I don't care what anybody says. It is.
But this coming to a head of going to seize the Capitol Like, it wasn't a protest. It wasn't a march.
No.
It wasn't a demonstration.
No.
They came with plans to siege, to take the Capitol by force, take members of Congress and the vice president by force. They came purposefully to do that. And so it got to a point where, I think I said last week, finally, that white people aren't going to be able to ignore the crazy anymore.
Right.
Like, this is critical mass. So I was glad to see the bubbling over. I did not expect the dragnet or anything to happen in the moment, because the initial reaction of white people, the good white people, was shock. They all went into shock, like we all were, like, what the fuck is going on? But for them, because they pretended like it was so benign for so long, this was an awakening for them. So that was my first thought, was like, ooh, this is gonna be good. When, you know, like, the white people group texts are gonna be on fire. Like, it was weird. It was a little bit of, like, you know, glee, but also like, Jesus Christ, this is not good.
Right.
Yeah.
And we want you to be a part of this conversation as well. We would love to get your initial thoughts, your initial reactions when you saw the siege on the Capitol go down. You can call us at 410-822-3733. That's 410-822-FREE, F-R-E-E. You can also leave your comments on YouTube or Facebook. I'll do my very best to use my phone and get to them and read some of them. But now, you saw everything. You saw the footage, you saw the photographs, you saw the Confederate flags, you heard about people urinating and defecating in the Capitol. You saw people literally being let into the Capitol. You saw all of the craziness.
Taking pictures with officers.
Taking pictures
Yep.
with Capitol police officers. My question, the $1 million question is, what the fuck was up with security? Anybody want to go first?
Well, it was non-existent. And I think people don't understand that because they were Trump supporters, I believe that they were given carte blanche and orders were made not to really deal with them as they would anybody else. And also that a lot of those people who participated were off-duty law enforcement personnel, which all of this stuff is coming out. And so I just believe that specific instructions were made to, like, just let them do what they're gonna do. And I think they just stood back, because that's what a lot of law enforcement people do. They get orders from the top down, and they just like, okay, you know, let's just chill. And that's what happened. So that's why the security was so lax. Also, the other thing was, even though we're talking about white people, the white people who were in the Black Lives Matter demonstration, they were treated harshly as well.
Yes.
And they were fired upon and all. So it's not always just, it is about black and white, but it's also about the ideology and who you're supporting. And of course, if you support Trump, then you're treated differently by the law enforcement, because he controls that.
Okay, Kendell?
I don't think the magnitude of what happened fully hit me until I started to listen to and watch the recounts of the DC police officers who responded.
Okay.
Now, being sixth-generation Washingtonian, having at least a family member in military generation, family who worked for DOD for as long as I've been here and before, when I said that drop down, when I said that net, I was not speaking about, you know, our response in terms of where you would have generally seen a response. I'm talking about our military, because we're now talking about the literal symbol of our democracy and understanding post 9/11 what that net meant like. So,
Right.
So that was my rationale behind that. It was not based on anything that we have seen throughout this administration, but
Right.
literally what that response to terrorism looks like. So I look and I say, in this capacity, we have a federal building within our city, because the district is its own city.
Yes.
And the district had to come in and save the Fed. And that's literally, in this case, what happened. It should not have happened. There should not have been in a situation where the Capitol Police Force is 2,000 officers. You had 30 Metropolitan Police Department members holding down entrances or exits of the Capitol building. That's not their job.
Wow.
We haven't been paid from the first inauguration, if you really want to speak on it in terms of where my tax dollars have gone. So, you know, in this case, I look at security and I say, the Fed took a day off. Who is the commander in chief
Damn.
of
Right,
of our
right.
federal forces? Okay, so that order had to come from someplace. There had to be an adjustment in some manner of protocol, because protocol says exactly what happened on 9/11. I couldn't make it back. I was at my house. I could not have made it back to school. I could have not made it to the Pentagon. I would not have made it any place. Because literally, the response says, all of these ways that we egress and ingress out of this city are shut down, because that is where there's vulnerability. So there would have been no leaving. People who left?
Right.
No. A terrorist leaving the city? How?
How?
And
How
it's
does
so
that
easy
happen?
to do here.
Getting
Unlike New York,
apprehended
How
at
does
the
that happen?
airport.
unlike New York,
Right.
DC is
Yeah.
easy to shut down.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Like,
Absolutely.
And that's why we got the lawyer on here to break it down, because she just dissected that whole situation. Eric?
So last week I said that the Capitol Police is now an oxymoron, but the benefit of us having this act of God last week that didn't let the show air is that now there's enough time passed that has validated a lot of the things that we were speculating on last week.
I
when
want
we
to stop
talked
talking about last
security.
week, because
Well,
we
whatever
are
you
just going to
say,
act like last
the-
week didn't happen. I need the same energy that we
Yeah,
had
no, I
last
got
week.
you.
I need the same conversation, because there were so many technical difficulties that it's literally like last week didn't happen. So
Got you.
go ahead.
So the difference being that I know now that what I suspected is true. There were police involved, there were military involved, not just on the side of the seizures, if you will, but on the other side of that wall, within the Capitol and surrounding the Capitol. And there were people who were aware of the plans that were in place. Like, so much has come out since in terms of FBI memos that went to the White House and were ignored. You know, there was a lot of intelligence. Now, you and I, being common sense people, have enough sense to know that there was some shit brewing.
Right.
But the apparatuses that the government uses, they weren't in the dark as it appeared on that day.
Right.
They very much were aware of what's going on, and there was communication about all of these things. Some of that communication was used for malfeasance. Some of it was, you know what I mean? Like, literally, even today, they've taken, 12 National Guard out of the city from guarding the city because they have been found. The National Guard just got here.
That's
so we're not
crazy.
even talking about the 6 anymore, right? So we still have the same problem. It's not as big now because we're approaching 20,000 guardsmen. But the fact that 12 guardsmen who have like white supremacist ties that were rooted out by the FBI this week, that were literally posted here in DC, that was attacked the week before. So you're sending the people who are in these groups back to the Capitol to now protect the building that they sieged a week and a half ago.
I want to get back to the white supremacist ties, but I want to hear Ardena's response to what the fuck was up with security.
So I agree with the whole panel that there was there was miscommunication, and I don't want to use that word because that's a very nice political word to use, a lax. There was just police just sleeping. I think that with all the red tape we have in our government, there was a knowledge. They knew that this was going to happen, and they decided that, as I said before, that they weren't going to police themselves. So how do you police yourself when you're part of the mayhem? And I just saw that they decided nobody needs to know. We sent in the certificates to get approved, to do whatever needs to be done. But it just shows the lack of where things are in our government and a lot of work that needs to be done to fix those layers in our government. I don't think that it's just a Trump thing. I think Trump has ignited and has brought everything under the light for us to see. But I think that there are a lot of things that have been going on in our government that now we're beginning to see, and hopefully tomorrow things will begin to change and transition for the better.
410-822-3733. That's the number to call. Once again, 410-822-3733. We're talking the siege on the Capitol. We're talking about Trump's transition out of power, Biden's transition into power. America, what the fuck, and how did we get here? All right, Eric, you mentioned something about white supremacist ties into like the various facets of law enforcement. My question is, how does that happen? With America having this huge intelligence network, like they can find out everything and anything. How do you have local police officers that are members of the KKK? How do you have National Guardsmen, people in the military who have ties to white supremacist groups, and they don't know?
Or they do know.
Or they do know. That's what I was getting at.
So the how is, one, how the country that we know it was established, right? And then how law enforcement as a government apparatus, law enforcement didn't used to be this big, remember? Like, you know, you've seen Westerns and all that stuff. It was a little sheriff with a little
Mayberry.
shooter. And, yeah, I mean, and that was most cities in America, right? And so law enforcement, or the police state that we know, was a response to enslaved people being freed. That was the collective response, was we're going to throw this at it. It killed two birds with one stone, because it opened up a lot of job opportunities for a lot of these, Klansmen, white supremacists, whomever. So you see a lot of them. That is the military and law enforcement are their first. A lot of them, their first, what do you want to be when you grow up, right? And so it's been ignored and allowed. It's not like an accident, or like they snuck in backdoor. They hide. They're not hiding shit. They're on Facebook. They're not hiding. Yeah, we see it loud and proud now because of social media. And thankfully, it just tells you like how the level of ignorance and stupidity, that the fact that they would post this as if it wouldn't matter or affect them. But the fact is that these white people have been doing this for a long time, and these institutions were built for them to do it.
What do you think, Kendell?
For me, I go back to Eric's primary point, which is that there's never been a time that this wasn't the case. I had an interesting conversation with a sister from Iowa, and her take on a lot of siege, rationale behind the siege, the basis for insurrection was very different than the conversation that I had with most of my specifically black friends.
Okay.
And so, when we talk about, or we're thinking about what is the voice of people, right? And it caused me really to kind of go back and think. There's no one who's going to tell me that I don't get to have a level of explicit, unabashed, unapologetic pride for being a black person.
Exactly.
So, by converse, do I get to say that someone who has the same sentiment because they are white, because they are orange, whatever,
so silly,
that they do not get to have this same autonomy, this same pride? So there's a line there for me, and a certain thing that I'm working through mentally.
Okay.
Like, what does that mean? So when we say someone is white supremacist, we say someone, you can use a term that doesn't exist, but a black supremacist. So this is someone who has this affinity for ourselves. The issue comes in when that affinity becomes something that's used for oppression.
Oppression, exactly.
When it is used as a manner to subjugate another group.
Exactly.
And so there's that line when it comes into these folks, right? So the rooting out looks a little bit different. Am I upset because you have 15 Harleys and you got, some tattoos that are crazy? No. I mean, because this is redneck perception, right? Or, what kind of gets tossed into that bucket. Duck Dynasty, this is what you look like. Okay. I've had a lot of good experiences with people who look
like that.
They straight came out of Duck Dynasty.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So where do we draw this First Amendment free speech line? Where do we draw this space that says, okay, your Facebook posts look like, you could think, that because I am, African American, because I'm black, that I'm still supposed to be cleaning your clothes or, taking care of your babies.
Right.
Don't know. It could simply be you have an affinity towards your people, and so therefore this is what you post, this is what you like. You ain't got no black friends. You never really thought about having no black friends. You're in the middle of Iowa, and that's that.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I do know that when it comes down to the people who've posted swastikas, who said go kill the N-word babies, go do all this other stuff, whatever it is, that's clear. That's easy. We have the means by which we have we have bots, we have scrapers, we have everything to go through and say, this is language that demonstrates that you don't have an affinity, but you have a bias that's going to cause you to subjugate, to oppress, to cause these problems. Those people have the ability to be removed. Where I have my questions and my slight schism in terms of free speech, in terms of this democracy experiment, is saying, are you going to, in 20 years, will there be a fight against me? Will I be in this seat as people of color become the majority of saying, because I say I'm black and I'm proud, now I've used hate speech. And I want us to be careful.
Better be very careful
of that line.
About that line. That's an excellent point. Larry? How do you think that it happens?
Well, as I said before, it's in the DNA of the police officers. It's in the DNA of the police department. It's in the DNA of the military. Like Eric alluded to, and I said last week, it's how they were founded and the reasons why.
Historically.
They were founded. Right, from a historical perspective. And it's not just, like I said before, all they ever had to do is go to their Facebook pages and look, And so they don't want to know. They wanted it to happen, and it's happened. And you have to understand that Barack Obama set the climate for Donald Trump, the same way George Bush set the climate for Barack Obama.
Mm-hmm.
So people, they're angry because they feel like they're losing something.
The pendulum swings.
Right, they're losing power, or they're losing their grip on what it means to be an American.
Mm-hmm.
Because for people who are oppressive, equality is oppression to them. And so the fact that we're making strides, people are taking office.
Isn't that crazy though?
Right.
Isn't that crazy?
Because they're so used to doing whatever they want to do, saying whatever they want to say, and moving however they want to move. When that's challenged or it's deemed that that's not the correct way to move any longer, now that's oppression to them. So these people stormed the Capitol for what?
For nothing.
Right. Like what? How are they downtrodden?
Because of equality.
How are they disenfranchised? And violently took the way we should take the Capitol.
The way we should.
We know better,
right?
Because we understand what the response would be. And so and that's the beauty of racism. It's not just one person feeling a certain way. It's a network and an intricate system that supports it.
It is.
So it's a system that would allow them to come to the Capitol in the manner in which they did, that would allow them to do what they did in a violent manner, and then not even really pay a recourse right away. Like, if black people had that, there's no way they would have been allowed to go home.
And then that's why I say, and I want to be very clear on this. I'm not saying white people are crazy, that every walking white person on the face of the planet is crazy. That's not what I'm saying. But I'm saying that the psychology behind white privilege is indeed a psychosis. Like, it's you are straight up batshit crazy. For example, one of the guys that was terrorizing the Capitol was placed on the no-fly list because he was recognized as what he is, a terrorist. He got to the airport and he couldn't fly. He was literally angry to the point of tears that he was placed on the no-fly zone. He was like, look at what they did to me. Like, he literally felt oppressed. He felt oppressed. And I was like, this fool went to the Capitol, sieged the Capitol, broke the law, terrorized a government building with members of Congress in the building and then complained and felt that he was victimized because he could not fly home. That is crazy. Nothing about that makes sense. And that's why I say white privilege is a psychosis. And like just the biggest and the best, for lack of a better word, example of that is Donald Trump. He is white privilege on steroids. Right. And he was allowed to be himself and look at where we are now. He literally incited a riot.
Even his business relationship, the way he's been able to borrow billions of dollars with his track record.
With his track record.
Whereas if you and I, we have a couple of late payments. And it's like,
you can't get nothing.
Drop 100 points.
Yes, yes.
So,
Ardena, do you want to add anything? Her sound is off. Can we bring the Zoom up?
I think another great example, April, Ardena, was the woman who felt like she should be pardoned. I don't know if you saw her.
I didn't see her.
But there's a woman, and it's her interview, and she basically says, I should get a presidential pardon. We went and we stormed the Capitol. Basically, these were the instructions. We thought we were following the president. So this is what should happen. And so that goes back into exactly what you were saying. There is a psychosis there.
It's a psychosis.
There is, and it's at this point, there's a cult leader. There are promises, because that's part of that whole cult formula. So there is a leader. There are promises that have been made in terms of this miracle existence, this transformative experience that is going to happen. In this case, the transformative experience being the ability to keep that power, to keep the things.
And they really thought it was going to work.
Exactly. And so there's this part, and then you have this group of sheep, these people who are coming down this pyramid, who are literally the foundation of it, who've drunk the Kool-Aid. And the literal belief of those folks is that this person who has done nothing for others, business or otherwise, is going to do this work for them.
Right.
So it's kind of a thing where it's like, how do we see this happening? Where do we see this going? And there is no exit plan. There is no positive space, because if not, then you have to go and, what are you going to make, a Europa? And so now you have this exclusion, but then who's doing it's just a...
And then you the people, they're so blinded by their own racism that they're voting against their own special interests.
How do you vote against your own interests?
Because Donald Trump will never represent you.
How do you do that?
Right.
And something else that's very interesting to me is this democratic system that we've had, which black people know really is flawed and doesn't work perfectly, but has been working perfectly for the last 500 years, okay? How do we now get to the point where that system does not work? How do we now get to the point where you say that there was election fraud and voter fraud and all this stuff, and everybody is up in arms over a fucking lie, over a lie? And that's why I say, and once again, I don't want to sound like I'm some person who wants to eliminate white people off the face of the earth, because that is far from the truth. I'm a humanist with a black female leaning, because that's what I am, and that's my lens on the world. But the white lie is the most dangerous lie of all, because there's so much destruction that comes behind that white lie that they say is a harmless lie. It's just a little white lie. No, it's not a little white lie. It's a lie. You know it's a lie. And collectively as a people, they get together and tear shit up behind something that they know is not true. Donald Trump knew there was no voter fraud. These people, I don't care how sheepish they are, I don't care how dumb some of them are, they knew there was no voter fraud, but everybody got together based on this white lie and caused so much destruction. How do we deconstruct the white lie?
Oh, it was the removal of the Constitution for me. That was my issue, because there is a process for this. So if the point is that this is America and they are representing in their minds what is supposed to be the best of America, the America that was able to overthrow the British, the America that is able to move into the Wild Wild West, then that America decided that we were going to create a constitutional process That America said we were going to have checks and balances.
Come on, attorney.
And
Come on.
so when we put that in place, you're running for executive office, the head of the executive branch. Okay, this is what the Congress was doing. Congress was certifying. If you have an issue with what the Congress is certifying, this is what the Supreme Court's for. You packed the Supreme Court. So if you thought there was going to be any moment in history, any moment in time where there was the ability to say, oh, we're going to run this bullshit all the way at the flagpole, it's now.
It's now.
But instead of doing that, the Americans, in their mind, decided to circumvent the entirety of a constitutional procedure and instead revolt and provide for an insurrection. That is the least American thing that we have, even in terms of when we had to come from under the British rule.
Right.
And when we were a freaking colony. When we did that, we still petitioned. We still requested.
There was
we
process.
Still attended a whole process.
There was process.
Tried to pay the people and everything.
Crazy.
But not here.
Do you want to add to that, Ardena? Oh, and her sound is still off. Wait a minute. We really trying to get you together here.
But it's not just a lie. It's not a lie to them. It's an excuse. It's a lie to us, isn't it? It's an excuse to them. Like they've because all Donald Trump has done in the cult fashion is give these very ambiguous kind of little low-hanging fruit to the people, right? When you build the wall, you're going to get your jobs back. Everything's going to be all right. You know, we're going to turn this around, make America great again, or whatever, right? Like, none of that means anything. Not even the fucking wall, which is a tangible thing, doesn't mean anything. It was an excuse for them because they've always, since he's entered this political theater, even when he was campaigning, he's given them nothing but excuses to pad whatever, you know, like psychosis that they've already had that was just dormant because they couldn't do anything with it. Now he gave them a playground. And so it doesn't matter that it's a lie to them. They just need an excuse. They just need a reason. They just needed somebody to say, hey, go ahead and, you know, do this shit real quick and see what happens. And like when they got that in the president, which is the highest office of the country, it validated the fact that the country is theirs. Mm-hmm. So
it was a free for all.
For them to think, well, we got our country back because our king is in power now, right? Now we're in the fucking monarchy. Our king is in power now, so we got our country back. Right. And then they realized that, okay, this charade is about to end, and it should have ended a long time ago. It never should have happened.
It really should have ended a long time ago.
But now that they see the writing on the wall that, oh, this is, okay, so these 4 years that we've had to do anything is about to go to waste because we've accomplished nothing. There's no wall. We still don't have jobs. People are dying of COVID. All this shit is happening, right? Like, and so we have nothing but Donald Trump. And you're going to take him away? Fuck that. And that's what that was that reaction. So it didn't matter what the lie was. He could have told him any lie he wanted to. They just needed somebody to give him the green light.
And since we're talking about psychosis, and that word keeps coming up, you probably noticed my sweatshirt. It says, "Hi, I'm crazy. Nice to meet you." I am wearing this. It is made by BCN Apparel. You can get it right now at bcnapparel.com. Of course, this is a XXL shirt that I converted into a dress, but it is a unisex shirt, and I just think that it's really that out the way off the top up front, right? So if you would like to get that, you can get it at bcnapparel.com. I am also wearing OMG liquid matte lipstick, and that is by Ego by April Watts. And if you notice my little glow, my little forehead, bridge of my nose, little cheekbones got a little glow, that is E-Glow Liquid Illuminator. You can get all of these amazing things at bcnapparel.com. Now, let's talk about where do we go from here? Kendell was saying earlier that she was like really thinking about the future. What is going on over there?
You were doing
I'm sorry.
and demonstrating what I wanted to know about. Eric is over here doing the blood.
Are you
highlighting
I
his
need
cheeks.
illumination.
Are you serious?
Y'all see my face?
And so I'm trying to hold it in and about to die because I was like, you do need a little bit. We can highlight you real good.
And I'm crazy. Nice to meet you.
move.
Right. Given.
How are we looking on the Zoom sound? Because I don't want to leave Ardena out of the conversation if she's able to speak.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She is talking and we
Can't-
cannot
can't
hear her.
But I think
She said,
can
yes,
hear
I'm
us.
talking. She can hear us. We cannot hear her. In the meantime, okay, they want to make sure you are not muted. Are you muted on? No, no. She is not muted on her end. So while we work on the Zoom sound, let's talk about something else that happened last week, the night before the insurrection or the siege on the Capitol. There was an historic election that took place in Georgia. Now, do you believe that that is a sign of progressive momentum, or do you believe it's just an anomaly in the South? Okay, hold on for 1 second. Okay, go ahead, Ardena.
Can you guys hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you.
I think we woke a sleeping giant up in Georgia. It started, I think African American Black people have been sleeping for a long time. And it took some real grassroots organization to wake us up. It is a sleeping giant that has now been woken. And I think that we need to stay on the momentum. We still have gubernatorial elections that are coming up. We can't stop this momentum. We have got to keep going and moving at the pace that we're moving at. I think that it was an awesome job that Stacey Abrams did in Atlanta with her grassroots. You know, Stacey said that, you know, you weren't going to get me the governorship. You guys will see what I'm going to do. And I think that there needs to be a movement amongst the Democrats and Black people, period. We cannot let this go. We have a major voice. We have the ability to impact, influence, and we need to infiltrate.
I like it. Once again, the number to call to weigh in on this important conversation is 410-822-3733. What do you think, Larry?
I think, is my mic on? Yeah. I think we need to take a page from the Jewish community, and where it doesn't matter if it's a Republican or Democrat, they all have to kiss Israel's ass. And until we get to that point, we're always going to be begging other people to do something for us or be nice for us. You have to take power. And so we have enough money generated as collectively as a unit where we can buy our politicians, and then that way they have to do what's in our best interest. And until we do that, we're going to always be in the same boat, whether it's Republican or Democrat.
Kendell?
I'm going to take a hybrid of those two answers. First, with Georgia, I am happy to see Soror acknowledge what seems to be finally an acknowledgement of Black women and the work that Black women do for the Democratic Party.
Yes.
So, for me, if that's what turns the state blue and that acknowledgement means it stays that way, then I'm here for it. And I'm ecstatic about it. At the same time, I do have the full-on belief, awareness, understanding that we give away our support.
We do.
And that should no longer be what we do. The power has been demonstrated. The ability to flip, turn states, move around, go live in some uncomfortable ass counties to make sure that we can vote appropriately. All of those different things have been demonstrated. The ability to organize. And that organization now needs to move to a space where we are getting the things that we need for our community, that we are starting to see results from our work, and not just lip service. And I do feel like we are in a unique place in this administration to be able to do it, but I also think we have to be very diligent and not taking our eyes off of these elections that are coming now. And as we're moving through these 4 years, because I do think this is going to be foundational for doing exactly what you said, which is starting to see that flip towards a progressive lean. I'm not going to say Democratic or Republican, because as far as I'm concerned,
they're all the same.
Right. There's a lot of similarity that exists, and I'm a person that sits in the middle. I'm very moderate, so I have other goals. I have other things. So I see if we are in a space where Black women, unfortunately, we always got the push, but we should be getting the reward for the push
Yes.
now.
Yes.
And if we
Yes.
don't see the reward, I'm going to sit my ass down. I do know that. But at the same time.
I'm not mad at it.
No.
I'm mad at it.
But we have the ability to now make those changes for the generations. The stuff that is actually thought out, deliberate matters relative to the environment, our economy, our city planning, urban development, all of those different things that need to be adjusted, healthcare, not dying when we have babies, like those things. I think we're in a space where we're able uniquely to work and to have this progressive lean and flip. If we don't take advantage, that's going to be on us.
Okay.
Like it.
Eric?
So I've never been a fan of like push presents. You know, those presents they give when you're giving birth and
Yeah.
all that jazz, that new shit.
Well, if I push something out, I want to push present.
I
I ain't even gonna lie.
always thought that was like a little weird because people just used to have babies and then now you get presents for it.
Do you know what we have to go
Let me
through?
tell you something. If Stacey Abrams don't get a goddamn push present,
Amen.
She deserves a push
Yes.
present. She definitely does.
Yes.
because and it should be of her choosing. That's
It really
you know,
should be.
how I feel about it. I don't know how Warnock and Ossoff are going to become, you know, how they're going to evolve as senators. I don't know how that, but they do give me promise. And when history looks back on this moment in time, that election is going to be weighted heavier than Biden's, to me, because that is, I didn't really have, even on our previous shows when we talked about the presidential election, I didn't have any real doubts that Trump was going to get voted out of office by whomever it was. It's on video, I said it. But this Senate thing was different. The effort it took, the organization it took, certainly the money. I mean, they broke all kinds of fundraising records in a matter of days. And if you're talking about a runoff election where your campaign strategy is 20-hour days of do everything you can possibly try to get done, because there's no strategy you have in a month. So the fact that they were able to pull this together so seamlessly and quietly enough where the polls didn't even give it away, so that people still really, the jury was out on election night until they saw those votes come in. So I have promised that apparatus can be replicated. That's the biggest takeaway from this, is that what was done in Georgia can be done in other places. The Democratic Party has to get its shit together and find the right candidates, and they have to let people who can be unleashed to do the job, like Abrams and many others have done. They have to lengthen that leash and give them more power and more responsibility, and they've been reluctant to do that because the Democratic Party has been reluctant to see the party tip the progressive scales. They're going to have to resolve that, but I do have promise based on the results of that election.
I have very little faith in the government. I'm just going to be honest. And so I kind of want to go back to what Larry said, because I think that what he said was very revolutionary, because no matter what administration we have, no matter whether it's a Democratic Congress, whether it's a Republican, whatever, rich people have always been rich and poor people have always been poor. That has not really changed. I don't care. Like we loved Bill Clinton, we loved Jimmy Carter. We like every president that every left-leaning or right-leaning person has loved has never really changed anybody's situation. So I'm thinking to what you said, Larry, about us building more within our own communities and amassing power through wealth.
Right.
Any ideas on that? Any
It
thoughts
will
on
start
that?
with keeping our money in our communities.
Yes.
And that's the first step. Then, like I said, once you have a collective economic response, then you can buy your politicians. because that's what we do.
Because they are unequivocally for sale.
Right.
Let's
We
just be
buy
honest
them.
about it.
And so
that's the system.
It's really not even a democracy anymore. It's really the haves and the have-nots.
Popularity.
Every once in a while, there's someone who can cut through the noise and do some grassroots shit. But for the most part, if you're not backed by money, won't nobody even, people vote based on name recognition.
They do.
So if people don't know who you are, the chances of getting voted in are slim to nil. So I don't know if we can ever change that, but we done the numbers, how much money we spent. It's in the trillions of dollars. And we pooled that economically and had an economic response. We don't make people pay for disrespecting us. And when we had the NFL thing, they didn't pay a price. So it was no reason for them to change. All they had to do was single a few people out, and that was it. And that's the same way we work in politics. Once you have a politician who really tries to do something good for the people, they'll either band against them or get rid of them.
Yep.
And so until we have the power where we respond as a unit, like I said, take a tip from the Jewish community. You do something to one Jewish person, you did it to all of them, and you get a response from the whole Jewish community. Even the LGBTQ, EIEIO, how many letters they had.
EIEIO.
It's a collective.
I'm A+. Thank you very much.
I'm so gonna fight you.
It's a collective response.
It is.
And so we don't have that. And until we do have that, we're always going to be in the same situation because the politicians control law enforcement. And so if we control politicians, then we can have a better state at controlling the law enforcement. And they won't shoot us in the street unarmed because it's going to be a collective response and it's going to be a price to pay.
And on the topic of change and moving forward, we spent a lot of time in the show talking about the crazy white people who did all the crazy stuff.
Right.
But for a lot of those people to be caught, they had to be turned in by not so crazy white people who have a moral compass, who knew who they were, who made the calls, who turned them in. And I'm specifically thinking about one example where a young girl turned her mom in. She saw her mom and her uncle, I think it was, in the crowd. And she said that her mother was like, definitely and strictly against her going to a Black Lives Matter rally, but she saw her mom breaking the law, and she called and she turned her mom in, and her mom lost her job. And it's interesting because I had a conversation with someone, and he was saying that he wasn't sure whether he would turn his mom in. But in a situation like this, when mom is a racist, when mom is breaking the law and trying to preserve something that is so detrimental to so many people, it is a time to stand up. So my question to you is, what role do white people need to play in moving forward and forward progression?
I think when we saw the siege on the Capitol, many black people understood that this is not about us. This is their shit.
I was on Facebook like, black people stay home. This ain't your fight. We ain't got nothing to do with this.
And so even with a lot of the white people protesting on behalf of black, like they protested longer than we did.
Yeah, they did.
Yeah.
And so because we had done it for so long.
We could take it back to the 50s and 60s.
It's
white people died with us, you know?
It's their turn. They have to, it's a civil war, and they have to confront a lot of what Eric was talking about, and the sister here, a lot of the racism, they have to speak out against it. And until they do, we just sound like the same old story.
Yes.
We're just complaining, we're whining, we're crying. But I think the events have happened where white people are really starting to see.
White people are tired
And
of
even
white
with the
people
camera
shit.
phones and all the different things, they're really starting to see. They saw this man put his knee on George Floyd's neck for 8 minutes.
Yep.
They saw that.
They saw it.
They saw the guy Blake shot in the back, running away from an officer 7 times.
Yes.
And then you see white nationalists walk around with assault rifles and ammunition like it's nothing, and challenge the police. Even before the Capitol siege, we've seen countless videos where they've been allowed to walk in anywhere they want with a weapon, and then you have a 12-year-old get shot within 33 seconds, and the right to carry state. So these things are starting to happen, and if you if you don't say anything or you don't speak out against it, then you're actually the problem now. It's not enough to
Yes.
just sit back and say nothing. You have to speak out against it. Either you with us or you against us. It's as simple as that.
Ardena?
I so agree. So I take it back to when our parents were doing the March on Washington. You know, Martin Luther King delivered dreams, but we all had a dream, and we all had to collectively come together. But there were a bunch of white people that were moving that machine,
Yes.
and we need white people to do the same. As Larry has said, white people are fed up with their own behavior, and they have a moral compass themselves. So when they begin to talk on behalf of the Black Lives Matter, or, you know, now is enough of the police brutality is enough. So when they begin to move, then that's when the money comes. That's when everyone begins to see, oh, enough is enough. And I think that we have been there for quite some time, but we needed those white individuals to get there. You know, there is a money machine that backs the Trumpisms, that backs those people that raided the Capitol. But there is a money machine that is in agreement that it's now time for Black lives to really matter.
Eric?
So I think our respective roles have to be clarified. Like, we need job descriptions. And for Black people, we are always going to have to be the moral compass. We're always going to have to identify
The problem.
the things that are oppressive, the damage that's being done, right? The things that we can't afford to be ignorant to. White people are going to have to fix it. And one of the things that I know a lot of, it was, you know, we just celebrated, I guess celebrated is the right word, MLK Day yesterday. And I think I've had a lot of conversations, you know, of a distant relative of the King family. So this has always come up in my dealings with my family. People looked at Martin as a leader of Black people, and for some, that was a disappointment because there wasn't enough anger and fire and brimstone and that urgency, right? I have always thought of it as he was leading white people to the promised land. Because we know where it is. We know what needs to be done. We know the shit. White people just kind of turned a blind eye until they had somebody who resonated with them enough to listen to. And that's what he gave a voice to at the time, because there wasn't anyone who was really communicating to Lyndon Johnson. You know what I mean? Like that was the need of the day. So I think that we have to keep those job descriptions in mind, and we have to keep their feet to the fire, but they're gonna have to do the fucking work.
Okay, Kendell, what role do you think white people need to play in moving America forward?
So, anybody else on this panel a hunter? Must have been hunting.
I'm a different kind of hunter, but I'm a hunter.
I think I'm one
Different kinds of hunting.
I don't shoot deer or anything like that.
So I'm gonna show part of my country, part of my Second Amendment, part of all of my things, right? If you are a hunter, you will generally come into a space in a moment where you have to do something that's called a compassionate kill.
Okay.
You have maimed an animal, you have not taken a good shot, and so this animal is now in pain. And in actuality, you were killing something for dinner, because we aren't hunters that hunt things
For sport.
That's not
Okay.
what we do. And so in that space of compassionate kill is where I feel like the white people specifically, and others, because there's some other people who are involved
course.
in this insurrection against America, have to decide, those who are truly on this side of America have to decide to put down, and I'm going to go through what put down means in 2 seconds, put down those who would be against what American actuality is.
Yes.
Because that's not America. We've already said that. That's an insurrection. That's terrorism.
Right.
Now, when we say put down, these same people have to be these good Americans who are making this compassionate kill, have to kill the processes and procedures that put black people disproportionately in jail. So systemic racism. We have to kill, or they have to kill, the financial systems that have been oppressing us for years. To me, that looks like reparations, because we've had
Hell
moments
yes.
in existence where upon building, you decide to come in, burn it down, Tulsa, Georgia, Chicago, Kansas City, let's keep going.
All of it.
That looks like something that needs to happen. There also has to be I don't even know if this has to be compassionate, but there has to literally be a murder, a bloodbath of racism.
Yeah.
And when I say that, that exists in different forms. So that exists in the nepotistic systems, that exists in the systems that are absolutely flat on face racist, and then it exists in the systems that we don't have the understanding that
The
they
more
are.
nuanced.
Government contracts. What
Honey.
looks like set aside.
Honey.
What needs to happen here. So there has to be a top down, because we are unable
Yeah.
to do this part of the compassionate killer on our own. We don't have the percentage to do it. We don't technically
Or the
have
power.
The power.
Or
That's
the
what I was just
power.
about to say. We don't have the power or the influence. So in actuality, though, this is what's the case, and this is where I agree with my soror. We have demonstrated that, first, there is an issue in this country. The rest of the world sees it. The rest of the world sees that we not only have an issue with race and oppression and the basic tenets that we are telling everyone else to follow. We will invade your country
Who we
if
say
you
we
are
are.
oppressing these people and you've done these things. So we've already shown them, oh no. So the rest of the world, there's a pressure for these folks. There's an out. So these people who have to do this compassionate kill in the same manner that a hunter has to say, okay, let me take this animal down because it's the better of things to do. These people have an agenda by which to do it. It looks like the rest of the world's looking at you like you're fucking crazy.
And they are.
There's the part that says, economically, we are hurting ourselves with these systems, whether it is the workforce that is out of place when it comes down to prisons,
Yes.
whether it is the fact that we have removed farmland and people who were good as goddamn hell at the farms and making plants and shit, now we got to import everything. Like, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
All
It's
of
just
these
everything.
spaces that there is this, even when it comes down to HBCUs. At this
Yes.
point, you can't even tell me, we're talking about my Spelman sister Stacy, Morehouse brother, HBCU, Howard sister that's now about to be, so, no. You can no longer tell us that the manner in which we educate our children, the manner in which we decide to put ourselves apart is not on certain levels better than the spaces that we've
Yes.
chosen to integrate. So these case studies have been made, and now these people, these true Americans who believe in this system that is this experiment called democracy and are choosing to follow the rule book of that experiment called the Constitution and the Bill of Rights, have to compassionately kill the motherfuckers
They
who
do.
don't actually want to follow the rules, edicts, and regulations that we've decided are part of being American.
They do. Hey, we got Jason over there. We got Jason over there clapping. Once again, we are going to wrap up in just a little bit, but if anyone wants to call, you are more than welcome to do so. 410-822-3733. Did you get to say what you thought white people needed to do? Because I'm just all into what Kendell was saying. I forgot.
Yeah, I think I went first. If
Yeah.
I'm not
You did?
mistaken. Yeah, I went first.
Okay. Also, speaking in moving forward, Joe Biden is about to be the president. We're literally tomorrow.
Wow.
We're going to have a new president. Okay. What would you like to see? What policy would you like to see? One policy enacted within his first 100 days of his administration. Let's go with Eric. And we got to keep it brief because we're wrapping up.
I'm gonna throw reparations out there first.
Yes.
Do that first, everything else will come.
Kendall?
I'm going to say healthcare because we're in the middle of this pandemic.
Honey, yes.
Yeah, and no one else should be bankrupt
That's
based
mine.
on care.
That's mine.
Yeah, my answer when I first heard you ask it was reparations as well.
Ardena?
Mine would be definitely to fund HBCUs.
Okay. Woo woo. All right. Well, I hate to do this because I do have more questions, and this has been an amazing conversation, but we do have to wrap up. So we will see you next week. Guess what? Next week we're talking about sex. It's something not everybody does, but many people do. I was about to say everybody. Just because I'm getting mine doesn't mean some people are getting
Everybody
theirs.
does it. Some people just do it alone.
Okay, yes, yes, thank you. And that is why we have that quick wit there.
As fortunate as you, April.
Everybody does it, whether you have participation or whether you do it alone. Yeah. Everybody does it. Lots of people lie about it, and there's so many different. Like I'm just learning. I am just learning at this age about different types of sex, and it's a whole new world. And I'm excited about it. So I want to talk about it, and I want you to be a part of that conversation. So next Tuesday at 8 o'clock, we're talking about sex. Good night. God bless. We love you.